bless him. Instead of dirt, it's something you can invest in. He said the earth takes shape like clay to the seal when it's pressed in. Heaven stretched out like a tent to rest in. The sky is the limit.
No, literally could the firmament hit you, yeah. The sky the limit.
I'm going to be citing from this article frequently, and I'll have a link in the description. It turns out Whitsitt was absolutely correct, but it gets even worse for the globe. According to the article, the ACE system was very reliable at 99.9%, and communications could be sent from 50 to 250 miles. It must be noted that microwave transmissions are electromagnetic waves with a frequency of 300 megahertz to 300 gigahertz. Frequencies used by ACE range from 832.56 to 959.28 megahertz. That falls within the UHF, ultra-high frequency spectrum, and UHF signals are narrow and travel in straight lines and are limited to line-of-sight applications, in which the receiver can be seen by the transmitter. Line-of-sight communications are certainly a problem for a globe, where that curvature of the Earth is supposedly bending away from you at roughly 8 inches per mile squared. The curve should begin blocking line-of-sight transmissions at the last visible edge of the globe called the horizon. For example, if you use a globe Earth curvature calculator like this one, a tower at 200 feet above sea level would be severely limited when attempting a line-of-sight transmission beyond the geometric edge of the globe. That would be closer than 17 miles. In addition to all other obstructions and the Fresnel zone, at a mere distance of 17 miles, the curvature of the Earth would begin blocking any transmission as shown in this illustration. But if the target receiver was 250 miles away, like the towers in the ACE system, the target receiver would be obstructed by a shadow of the Earth that is 36,000 feet tall. There is no mountain on Earth that would be tall enough to get a tower 36,000 feet high. The ACE system was in 9 different NATO countries, from England to northern Norway through Central Europe to Turkey. I did find this Wikipedia article helpful in finding the actual locations of many of these communication towers, but I was mostly interested in this map here from the article, showing the ones in England and Western Europe. But I went ahead and mapped each of these locations on Google Earth, and I have the coordinates to all of the actual sites listed there if you want to do some follow-up research. Many of those communications should be blocked by the curvature of the Earth. For example, the one on the top right from Kollafirth Hill in the Shetland Islands to Sola, Norway is a big one. Those microwave towers, according to Google Earth, are at a distance of 262 miles. The elevation there at the Sola, Norway location is 2,615 feet above sea level. Adding 150 feet for the array gives us an observation height of 2,765 feet. To maintain a line of sight with Kollafirth Hill, the tower in the Shetland Islands would have to be 26,000 feet high. Unfortunately for the globe, Kollafirth Hill only has an elevation of 785 feet. Other distances between the towers were from approximately 40 to 200 miles. But let's get to the big one. Ringstead Bay in southern England to Monte Gorramendi in Spain. This one doesn't show up on all of the ACE maps because it wasn't technically part of ACE, and so it makes sense why it has been overlooked. But it was still used in the network and used the same technology. Here's an excerpt from Wikipedia confirming the same. Finding the exact location of the Ringstead site was a bit tricky since it's not listed as an ACE site. But here is a photo of the Ringstead location back in 1970. This article also confirms the link between Ringstead and Gorramendi did exist. Looking at the photograph of the two aerials, I was able to pinpoint the location of the Ringstead station on Google Earth, right where the yellow place mark is. I am definitely close on the map when you compare the photograph with Google Earth. Here's the location on Google Earth with the coordinates that I used, but I could be slightly off. The elevation there is at around 55 feet, and we'll add 150 feet for the height of the aerials, which gives us a total height of 205 feet. And that seems to match the photograph. But you could add 1,000 feet, and it wouldn't make a difference. Next, let's look at Monte Gorramendi, Spain. I was able to find the exact location of the Gorramendi station from this German article. The elevation at that point is 3,481 feet, and we'll again add another 150 feet for the aerials to get a height of 3,631 feet. The distance between Ringstead and Gorramendi is 515 miles according to Google Earth. I've also included the elevation profile here. Notice that there is a direct line of sight between Ringstead and Gorramendi on a flat Earth. With a microwave height of 3,631 feet above sea level and a distance of 515 miles, you get a whopping target hidden height of 129,415 feet, or 39,465 meters. That means, on the globe, the Ringstead Tower in southern England would have to be 24.5 miles tall to have line of sight with Gorramendi, but the Ringstead aerials were only 205 feet high. Obviously, the globe fails. Of course, whenever the curvature disappears, the globe propagandists have a reason why. For example, the curvature of the Earth disappeared when Guglielmo Marconi sent that transmission over 2,000 miles. Naysayers said the curvature of the Earth would block the transmission. Instead, the curvature somehow disappeared, and the ionosphere theory was created. The curvature seemingly disappeared when the Lorentz system used triangulation to locate ships over 1,000 miles away from the towers. In this case, the radio signals didn't bounce off anything, but were said to inexplicably hug the curvature of the Earth. How triangulation over 1,000 miles works on a ball and a vastly curved baseline isn't explained. We have repeatedly discussed the World War II German Knickebein system, which used line-of-sight bombing beams that were hundreds of miles away from the target locations. For some reason, the curvature disappeared for those line-of-sight bombing beams as well. How about the fact that sonar technicians have stated that there is no sonar acoustic Earth curvature shadow? The curvature disappears there too. How about the U.S. government's SOSUS submarine surveillance program that could monitor submarines thousands of miles away from their recording devices by way of triangulation? How triangulation based only on a math, assuming a flat Earth, could work on a globe with objects thousands of miles away is never explained. Again, the curvature disappeared without a trace. Maybe you remember the fact that humpback whales can communicate over 4,000 miles away. Why doesn't the 500-mile-high Earth bulge between the whales affect the communications? Seems like the alleged 1,800-mile-tall Earth curve acoustic shadow just disappeared. Do you remember the record 830-mile line-of-sight LoRa transmission at sea level? Again, the curvature disappeared, even though LoRa is likewise a line-of-sight communication. But let's get back to the ACE high communication system. The official story as to how Ringstead was able to communicate with Gorramendi at a UHF line-of-sight frequency was due to refraction, which is technically called tropospheric scatter. Just to be clear, the troposphere is where we live. It starts at the ground and rises to about 33,000 feet. According to the official story, the microwave signal is pointed just above the horizon. Let me emphasize that pointing the signal at just above the horizon just so happens to be the same place you'd point the signal if the Earth were flat. But the story is that the once line-of-sight signal pointed just above the horizon refracts or scatters off of the moisture in the air and comes back down at the receiving tower 515 miles away. It doesn't matter if it's 100 miles or 515 miles. It just so happens that the signal bounces off of the air we breathe and hits the other tower hidden by the massive alleged curve of the Earth. If that were the case, then you wouldn't need line of sight for any microwave communications, as those signals would be scattering everywhere, and you wouldn't even need the signals to line up anymore. Furthermore, how could the system be reliable at 99.9% when it relies on microwave signals bouncing off of moisture in the air, especially since that would fluctuate tremendously? Just like with long-distance observations, it seems the refraction excuse just happens to inexplicably fix the globe when the curvature needs to disappear to maintain that globe illusion. I couldn't find too much information on the Pacific scatter system, but look at this map. Some of those communications were over 1,300 miles at VHF frequencies, which are supposed to penetrate the ionosphere. A distance of 1,350 miles would require curvature drop around 223 miles. Again, the curve just disappeared.